Carlton Ward.
Evans.
Evans. I don't know where I got that. Okay, Carlton Evans. Carlton Evans has had an interesting journey, which he's going to talk to you about. Started life and career as a microbiologist, and then moved to not mediation, but social justice.
Yeah, I became a facilitator, but in the meantime, I became a juvenile detention specialist.
Okay, so I'm going to just turn it over to Carlton and let him talk to you about it. But it's I think, an interesting journey. And I've also warned him that we're very conversational. And so if he has questions, we're happy to answer those questions and get involved. So thanks everybody for coming.
First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me. I'm going to be very brief in my presentation simply because I believe in conversation. I believe in directed dialogue. I would really like to hear what you have to say because I believe the solutions to these problems resides with us. How do we dismantle structural racism? How do we eliminate white supremacy? The short answer is, I don't know. The long answer is that I have an opinion, but I don't know if it's going to make a difference. I want to leave you with a call to action, but I am not sure if my call will inspire you to action. Yet, it is action that we must take. People of color must take action. White people must take action. Do we take the same action? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I see a four-pronged approach. White supremacy or oppression operates according to Dr. Valerie Batts on 4 levels. These are the 4 levels of oppression and change. It is important, the significance of this structure is that once you decide or figure out on what level the oppression is working on, that's the level that you need to make the change on. Okay, the 4 levels of oppression and change. These are the personal level, the interpersonal level, the institutional level, and the cultural. The personal level consists of the beliefs, conscious and unconscious, and your personal values. The interpersonal level is how you interact with other people, being guided by these beliefs and values. The institutional level, by the way, internalized oppression exists on the personal and the interpersonal levels. The institutional level is the procedures, written and unwritten, that an organization might have. And the cultural level is what we define as being good, beautiful, and true. Conversation, or rather directed dialogue, is the antidote for personal and interpersonal oppression. One reason that these problems persist is that we do not talk about them in a meaningful and thorough manner. A lot of conversation and directed dialogue is going on right here and in other places, yet we must do more. In our workplaces, our places of worship, at the grocery store, and over our neighbor's fence. These conversations help us to realize that we are all the same, that we have the same hopes and fears, that we are all human. We are making much progress on the personal and interpersonal levels here in America. But for lasting change to occur, there must be change on all 4 levels. I'm going to repeat that. For lasting change to occur, there must be change on all 4 levels. The 2 levels that I wish to deal with more today are the institutional and the cultural. Together, they make up systemic or structural racism. Institutional oppression, the policies and rules, written and unwritten. We must mandate new rules and policies. To make new rules and policies, we must have power. Power is a bad word for progressives. We tremble when we hear that word. There is no reason to dislike or be afraid of the word. Power is simply the ability to get what you need when you need it. It is simply the ability to get what you need when you need it. White supremacy is not just going to give up. Power never just gives up. It only surrenders to a greater power. Power is not given to you. We must build our own power. Power is built through relationships. And with those relationships, we build community. And that community needs to build a new political party. A party that is truly for the people and of the people. A party of all colors who believe that basic human and economic rights, racial and gender justice is not unreasonable pie in the sky. Republicans do not care about social justice, and Democrats do not care enough. They are two different names for the same system, a system of oppression. Yes, we have to be organized, mobilized, and tenacious for years. Lastly, we must make change on the cultural level. In other words, defining what is good, true, and beautiful. We impact the cultural level by rendering justice. How do we achieve justice for crimes that have been committed over several centuries, even up to today? I think that one step is by admitting publicly and in the highest centers of government that there was and is a crime being committed. And then a government commission does a national study looking at the effects of slavery, Jim Crow, the New Deal, redlining, and mass incarceration on people of color and on white folks.
Yes.
What did the nation gain from these activities? What did the nation lose? Is doing that bad? I have just described to you what reparations looks like.
Yes.
Reparations isn't about money. No amount of money can make up for this evil. Reparations is about truth, about justice.
Yes.
Every year, Congressman Conyers brings up a bill about reparations. It never comes to a vote. The bill authorizes no spending. It is simply a demand to discuss the issue. Congress cannot even discuss the issue. There will never be justice if we cannot even discuss the issue. The pillage and murder of black folks will continue. We must give Mr. Conyers our support. We must throw light on this hypocrisy. The truth must be spoken, cataloged, broadcast, and archived. The truth must also become a part of our educational system.
Yes.
If America's true history were told, no one would hold up the Confederate flag with pride. They would know that the Confederate flag is the twin brother of the Nazi swastika.
Yes.
Hate is hate. Evil is evil. We must tell the true stories. Stories are powerful, very powerful. The stories we tell build our view of the world. We must tell new, true stories. We must change the dominant story or narrative. The current dominant narrative in our country is that white is always right, and that non-white is always wrong. We must tell true history in our schools, books, theater, and cinema. Friends that I tested these words on said that I sounded angry.
No.
I am, but I am also hopeful. I believe that most Americans want a vibrant, multiracial society. We've just gotten a little stuck in the process. We must make ourselves intentionally multiracial. Bring folks of other races into your social sphere. Attend a church that is predominantly of another race. Live in a multiracial neighborhood. Are there other things that one can do? In conclusion, Americans want simple solutions. Yet, complex problems demand complex solutions. A persistent problem demands a persistent, permanent solution. White people are not evil. Black people are not angels. There is a racist system in place that doesn't need our actions to continue. For it to continue, all we have to do is go about our business. And these systems of oppression will continue. But our actions are needed to destroy racism on all levels. It needs all races to destroy it. This is not about black against white. This is about right versus wrong. Now I want to hear what you have to say. Yes, ma'am.
I was just fascinated that Congressman Conyers has a reparations bill. I know he also has a single-payer health care bill. And that, knowing that he's aging, what can we do? How can we jump on that? You know, I get some information about the bill and really.
That's a good question. I would recommend you contact his office. I'm sure he'll be glad to give you information about the bill. Write to your congressperson. Tell them that you support this because they're politicians. They recognize power. Your power is your vote. Your power is your vote.
And hoping that we don't elect a bigot as our president, it would be what you described in terms of a national level process could be something that a new president could introduce.
The revolution is not going to start, major change is not going to start at the presidency. It never has, it never will.
Okay.
Like there are too many checks and balances, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
I love President Obama. Part of half of me wanted him to get elected, half of me didn't.
Right.
Because it was the financial crisis in 2008, and I just didn't want to see his name in the history books
Yes.
presiding over the economic collapse of the United States. But I cried when he was elected. I worked for his election, I cried for him when he was elected. He could have done more, but you know, we can debate that. We can debate that.
One of the things that I'm interested in, my name is Kimberly Colligan. I teach cultural and ethnic studies in Seattle. I'm here visiting friends and decided to come here. One of the things that I'm interested in, because I obviously agree with everything that you're talking about, we, however, keep referring to things as systems of oppression. What I would love us to do is to change our language so that we change our perspectives. Let's talk about systems of privilege instead of systems of oppression. one of the things that I find that we do is when we begin to talk about race, we only focus on people of color. And it allows white people to forget that they are racial beings too. It seems to me that what we have done in the civil rights era and until now is that we have been working to de-racialize people of color. Well, if people of color make up 90% of the population of the world, wouldn't it be more effective and efficient to racialize white people instead of de-racializing people of color? Because race has become it is a very meaningful category. And it's not something that we're going to get rid of because it is so profitable. And in fact, one of the biggest problems that we have is that we mistake racism as a problem of hatred, when racism is really a problem of power and profit. And so if we keep talking about racism in terms of systems of oppression, in terms of what happens to people of color, as opposed to helping white people to see themselves as racialized beings, then we're going to be kind of focusing on concepts of hatred, and we're trying over here to get everybody to love each other. Well, our structural system of racism, we can all love each other tomorrow. Everybody can love each other tomorrow, and racism can still be present, because it is not about hatred. And so when we keep focusing on what the left hand is doing, the right hand is doing something completely different. So in our dialogues, if we start saying, this didn't happen to me because I was black, this happened to me because you were white, that gives us such a completely different perspective on everything that happens, and it gives us a different point to begin having these dialogues.
I agree with everything that you're saying.
Very, very insightful.
Because it isn't about hate. Hate is what justifies people doing it. But it's about the money.
It was a justification.
It's about the money.
So that people could feel that their actions were justified. There's a reason we're treating those people that way. They deserve it. And it was the way that, going back to the beginnings of the creation of whiteness, it was the way that that white people could justify owning humans and go to heaven. How can we do that?
Exactly. I mean,
That's what the ideology of racism is about. But the purpose of racism is profit.
Yes.
Never, ever mistake that. It's profit.
Absolutely. Because like, we as human beings, our greatest talent is justifying our actions.
Yes.
That's our greatest talent. You know, everybody can justify what they're doing. And a person likes to think of themselves as a good person.
Yes.
So you can't treat another person bad unless you believe that that person is not a person.
And that's what also keeps us from being able to discuss racism with white people, because they associate the word racist with being a bad person. And so we have to be able to talk about the fact that one can be a good person and be racist. We have to change that ideology so that we can have the discussions. Because it's people not wanting to be branded a bad person that keeps them from getting involved in discussions.
I agree with you totally. I mean, I think it was in 1860, a Yale historian said that the value of the slaves in 1860 was worth more than all the railroads in America, all of the manufacturing, everything.
Yes.
There were more millionaires in the Mississippi Valley than in all the rest of America. So no, it's about money. It has always been